What comes to mind when you hear the word Paris? Perhaps the Eiffel Tower? Indeed, it is a marvelous achievement of humankind, the construction of which would have been impossible without a highly advanced civilization. But let's go back to a time just under 100 years before it was built. So, the year is 1793. The city, like all of France, is in the throes of revolution. In the city squares, the guillotine is taking heads one after another. The old order is crumbling, street by street, institution by institution. But behind the walls of the so-called psychiatric hospital in Bicêtre, there's not a whiff of civilization. The people who ended up in this institution were neither criminals nor villains. Their main problem was a certain poorly understood illness that prevented them from being full-fledged members of society. A family member, a local official, or a priest, any one of them could deprive you of a dignified life for the rest of your days, simply if you happened not to be as healthy as everyone else. It's somewhat reminiscent of the legend of Spartan selection, isn't it? Why would society need you if you're unable to be of use to it? That was the cruel reality of those times. O tempora, O mores! And so they were placed here, chained to the walls, chained to their beds, left in darkness and filth. Most of those who ended up here vanished from life on the outside forever. The doctors here were just for show. There was nothing to treat. These people weren't considered sick. They weren't even considered human. They were beyond reason, beyond humanity, beyond the possibility of help. Standard treatments included bloodletting, ice baths, and beatings to restore order. The logic was simple and cruel. You don't treat an animal. You keep it under control. This was the medicine of the age. This was the consensus of educated men. Philippe Pinel was a doctor. He was calm, methodical, and educated in the classical tradition. By nature, he was not a radical. But when he was appointed chief physician at Bicêtre in 1793, he walked through the wards and saw what his colleagues had long since stopped noticing. He saw people who were worthy of hope, not dangerous animals, not broken machines, not hopeless cases, chained to stone walls in the darkness. He saw human beings, suffering human beings, deprived of any dignity the world could offer, abandoned to rot in a system that, without any evidence, had decided they were beyond help. Pinel began keeping records. He talked to the patients. He noticed that many of them were calm when treated with basic kindness and agitated when treated with cruelty. He noticed patterns. He noticed responses. He noticed that these were minds, disordered minds, suffering minds, not simply bodies out of self-control. In 1793, Pinel requested permission to change behavior and remove the chains from the inmates of Bicêtre. The official who received this request, Georges Couton, came to inspect the asylum personally. He looked at the chained men and turned to Pinel with contempt. "Citizen," he said, "are you yourself not mad to unchain these beasts?" Pinel replied that he was convinced these men were intractable only because they had been deprived of fresh air and their liberty for months and years. He received permission, and then he walked back into those wards and began, one by one, to remove the chains. One of the first men to be released had spent 40 years in chains. When his shackles were removed, he stood there, staggering, unable to believe his eyes. Then he walked to the door and stepped out onto the street, into the daylight. Later that same day, he was seen in the courtyard, calm and composed. He remained at Bicêtre for another 2 years and then left as a fully recovered man. 40 years in chains. And as it turned out, all he needed was to be treated like a human being. Of course, not all patients recovered. Not every removal of chains ended with a peaceful stroll in the sunlight. Pinel knew this would be the case. He did not romanticize the illness. He simply insisted, against the weight of tradition, that illness is what it is, an illness. Not a moral failure, not a possession by demons, not proof of an inhuman nature. It was something that happened to a person, not something that made them less than human. Then Pinel and his colleague Jean-Baptiste Poussin paid a humanitarian visit to the Salpêtrière, a massive psychiatric hospital for women on the other side of Paris. Pinel developed the first systematic classification of mental illnesses. He called his approach traitement moral, moral treatment, not the imposition of any rules or behaviors, but an appeal to a person's reason, common sense, and dignity. He built his life's work on a single conviction. Even in the most severe states of madness, some part of a person's personality remains accessible. A doctor who worked alongside him wrote an epitaph that has survived for 2 centuries. He said of Pinel, "He elevated the mad to the status of the mentally ill." Think about how recently this happened. Think about what it means that this phrase had to be written at all. Before a single, humble doctor walked into a Parisian asylum with permission to remove some of the chains, the world had not yet made this distinction between the mad and the sick, between an animal and a human being in need of help, between what it means to keep someone confined and what is called care and medical treatment. This shift took place less than 250 years ago. This is not ancient history. It barely extends beyond living memory. And it all began with one strong man with a big heart, who walked into a dark room and saw, where everyone else had stopped looking, people just like you and me.